We're going to show you the scene earlier tonight in downtown Lexington from our LEX-18 drone. You can see the group of about 250 protesters marching the streets, protesting the death of Breonna Taylor, who would have turned 27 today. We have crews in downtown Lexington tonight for the 8th night of protests in the city. Mike Valenti kicks off our big story team coverage.
Yeah, Nancy, I think the name on everyone's minds tonight is Breonna Taylor, but I want to describe a pretty remarkable scene before we get into that. Just minutes ago, protesters who were in front of the police department appeared to be marching down to Triangle Park. That's when a few protesters noticed there was a large group hanging out outside the Centro Bar under the Fifth Third Pavilion. They've expanded seating out here, and they said, let's go talk to them. They started chanting, "Take back Cheapside." Of course, this area has a horrid history. Hundreds of years ago, when black men and women were sold as property here. Now, the area is lined with bars. Organizers were clearly upset that there were people laughing, having a good time in an area associated with so much pain. And they made a vow. They said, from here on out, every night that they protest in front of the police department, they will make a concerted effort to come back here. And they said, we're gonna shout, we're gonna, we may disturb, you're drinking, you're eating, we won't damage property, but we will come back here until you listen to us. Again, as I said at the top, everyone is thinking about Breonna Taylor and her family tonight on what would have been her 27th birthday. And organizers made it a point to say that the message will resonate more, the message for racial justice and the message to end police brutality will resonate more if they keep the protest peaceful. Violence, they said, would distract from honoring Breonna Taylor. There's clearly a lot of pain and anger here in Louisville and across the country over Breonna Taylor's death. Her mother said today, it's so hard to breathe without her, but her family vows to keep fighting for justice. Today, demonstrators held a car caravan protest in her name, and tonight, at the outset of the march, they sang Happy Birthday.
3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear
People are wondering what else they can do to honor Breonna Taylor on what would have been her 27th birthday, aside from just attending a protest or posting something on social media. They told me they want people to call elected officials and urge them to fire the 3 officers involved in her case and charge them immediately. Kylan Mills now continues our team coverage.
Thanks, Mike. Another big focal point of tonight's protest took place right here in front of the police department around 9:30. Protesters approached and surrounded this group of police officers, and they held 8 minutes of silence in honor of Breonna Taylor. And that's when Police Chief Lawrence Weathers actually approached the barricade between the officers and protesters and joined the crowd in those moments of silence. He stood with his head down and hands behind his back. Protesters remained in front of the police department for about an hour after that, making their voices heard. People tell me they have taken notice to the small steps that the police department has taken, like removing their riot gear.
I really think it really set in, truthfully, every protest we've done has been peaceful. So why do they have to be so defensive? You know what I'm saying? So they took it off. They opened up, you know what I'm saying? And they're actually showing that, man, we can actually listen to y'all. We do listen to y'all. Y'all voice are being heard.
We in a big direction now because the police chief came out. I mean, that's a big step right there. So I think we're going in the right direction, but it's still a long way to go.
Now, you just heard from the police department, from the police chief rather, saying it was the right thing to do. He says he wanted to be out here tonight to show the protesters that the people at the top are listening. Now, protesters tell me that's all great, but they would like to see real change and they want to work with the department on meeting some of their demands. Now, we saw a diverse crowd out here tonight, including a lot of children. Let's send it over to Eleanor Buckley for more on that.
And because today was so peaceful, many people were able to bring their kids. They tell me this is an important moment in history and they want to be able to educate their children about it. And the best way to do that is to show them in person what is going on firsthand. For many of these families, they say they can't afford to not educate their children about what is going on. Because for them, this is life or death, but safety is important too. So they tell me they have to be watching the protests closely each day to see if it's safe enough. But ultimately, the future of their children's safety comes down to this moment in history.
Police are killing black men, and it's really scary raising black men in this community.
I just wanted to show my son that one of these days, even though he's young and cute now, when he gets older, he will be looked at as a threat, and I want him to understand why it's important to be educated and to be strong, to know his rights and to know right from wrong and to know that he can stand up for justice in a peaceful way.
I want to always be around to be able to teach them, so I got to teach them now while they're young what's right, what's wrong, and what's going on in the world is not right.
More protests are scheduled in the days ahead, and of course, we will continue to follow the latest developments. Live in Lexington, Eleanor Buckley, LEX 18 News.